Test 1 2. Test 1 2. Tap. Turn off.
Testing 1 2.
Let's go ahead and get started then. I'd like to call this meeting to order. Welcome to the Coeur d'Alene School District 271 regular board meeting of October 3rd, 2022. Would everyone please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I'd like to introduce our participants for this evening. Starting at my far right is Ms. Marianne Southwick, Clerk of the Board, Dr. Sean Hawker, Superintendent, Mr. Casey Morrisroe, Vice Chair, Ms. Heather Tenbrink, Board Member, Ms. Allie Anderton, Board Member. On the phone this evening, I believe we have Ms. Leslie Bierke. She's joining us via kind of Google Meet this evening and listening in. And I'm Rebecca Smith, Board Chair. Public comment on district-related items is scheduled near the start of this meeting and will be limited to 45 minutes. Please sign in on the sheet at the entrance door or outside the back. Comments may also be submitted to the board via email at trustees@cdaschools.org. Thank you. Can I have a motion to approve tonight's agenda?
So moved.
Second. All in favor? Aye. And just so we know, Leslie, are you on?
Yes, I am.
Great. Hi, welcome. Glad you're here.
Hi.
All right. And did you approve the agenda, Leslie?
Oh, yes, sorry.
Terrific. Thank you. Tonight, the first thing we get to do is pretty exciting. We are going to recognize one of the district's outstanding teachers who happens to be receiving a very major award this evening. And so if Jasmine Reed, would you come on up and we're going to celebrate you. Yeah, big round of applause. Hi. Welcome, congratulations. I'm going to read a little something about you, all right? So, Jasmine Reed teaches art at Lakes Middle School. Prior to this school year, she taught art in elementary school in our district for 10 years. We are excited to share that Jasmine was recently named the Elementary Art Teacher of the Year by the Idaho Art Education Association. Give her another round of applause. Jasmine was selected for her passion and her dedication to students. Those who nominated her cited her daily commitment to bringing the arts into the lives of students by taking the time to build a sense of community in the classroom, by getting to know her students on an individual basis and learning about the lives outside of school, and by understanding the active nature of learning and the benefits of hands-on art making. Jasmine will be honored during a luncheon and an awards ceremony this Friday at the group's fall conference in Boise. Jasmine, we just want to thank you for all you do for students and all you do for the arts and all the ways that you build creativity into our students. Wait here. We got you a plant because we know you get a certificate later on. So here's a little box to go with it. Congratulations and well done.
Something I'm going to ask you real quick. Chair Smith, I was just looking at our online board docs and our printed board sheet, or agenda that we have printed in front of us, and the agenda is different in them in the order. And it's just the placement of public comment. And so I'm not sure what was posted online or which we approved. I just think we need to go by what was posted online as far as the order.
What?
In our agenda online, in our board meeting packet, it has public comment next as item 4. And on our printed version, it has it as 5, where it would traditionally be after student body reports and the CEA report.
Sorry, I think that when I was just here a couple minutes ago, my cursor went and I didn't see anything weird.
right?
And was it previously posted in that order online? Like,
No,
okay,
it should be, online it should match what this is.
okay.
Okay. All right, well then we're going to go ahead and do the high school student body reports then. We'll go ahead and we'll start with Lake City High School. And I believe, do we have students here this evening? Welcome.
Good evening, esteemed board chair, honorable trustees, Superintendent Hawker, district administration, and valued community members. My name is Piper Stevens, and I'm the ASB Vice President at Lake City High School. We had our homecoming week last week, and it was an amazing success. Our student body had such a fun time with our Spirit Days. Our parade was the largest it's ever been, featuring 32 entries, including royalty, football, our Grand Marshal, Coach Troxel, and so many other student groups and organizations. We had our parade around Bluegrass Park in Coeur d'Alene Place, and it was so nice to have the neighborhood community, including kids from Woodland Middle School and Skyway Elementary. Halftime of the football game was highlighted by our incredible marching band and the crowning of our homecoming king and queen, Logan Fletcher and Layla Blackston. Our homecoming dance on Saturday night, which featured great music courtesy of DJ Rocks and beautiful Met Gala decorations, was so much fun for everyone in attendance. Overall, homecoming 2022 was loads of fun and a week we will never forget. A couple of weeks ago, we hosted our annual Senior Start event. Our seniors started out the morning with free breakfast in our commons provided by our senior parents before attending our senior class meeting, where they were informed about graduation plans, updates, and orders for graduation apparel. We then went outside where we engaged in multiple team building exercises and games and finished up with designing and painting senior parking spots. It was a very fun and successful event to kick off senior year. A huge thanks is due to our senior counselor here at Lake City, Andrea Duco, for all of her hard work to help make that event possible. We have planned a very productive and impactful October for our T-Wolf community. First off, we begin our Mental Health Awareness Week today in alliance with Sources of Strength and the Coeur d'Alene High School Student Council. This is going to be a week aimed at spreading positivity, awareness, hope, and love through positive messages, games, challenges, conversations, and education at both Lake City and CHS. Booths will be up during all lunches with community organizations offering many available resources. The week will culminate with the football game against Coeur d'Alene, which will offer free food to all spectators regardless of who you are rooting for. Also at the tailgate will be Sources of Strength booths and the opportunity to donate to a couple of amazing mental health nonprofits chosen by our two schools, Helinski's Hope and Mental Health America. While we will be battling on the field, our schools are united in breaking the stigma around mental health, highlighting resources for struggling students and overall spreading positivity. PSAT Day is October 12th. Lake City High School will participate in the statewide PSAT Day. All 9th, 10th, and 11th grade students will be taking the PSAT on October 12th. Seniors will not be reporting to school, and 9th through 11th will be on an early release schedule. Students are preparing for the PSAT, and the 11th graders who take the assessment are entered into the National Merit Scholarship Program by taking the assessment. We also are fully committed to participating in Breast Cancer Awareness Month and are looking forward to decorating our school as pink as possible and running fundraisers for cancer research in support of all our staff members, parents, and community members who have dealt or are dealing with breast cancer. We have an exciting month ahead of us coming up here at Lake City. Many clubs such as improv, role play, gaming, art, dance, speech, and debate are starting back up, and we are excited for our students to get going. We also have districts and state tournaments coming up for our fall sports. Our fall teams are competing very hard, including our girls soccer team, which is #1 in league and ranked #2 in the state academically. We are looking forward to cheering on all of our student athletes in this final stretch. Thank you for the opportunity to speak to you this evening. Go T-Wolves.
Thank you so much. Next up, we have a video from K-Tech.
Before the new school year started and all the students settled in, the K-Tech program had already begun in full swing. The K-Tech Open House, which was held on August 31st, prepared 625 K-Tech students for the upcoming year. The Communication Graphics program welcomes students at the Fincher location with a new PC and Mac lab purchased with Perkins funds, which will allow for dual credit with Lewis and Clark State College. This enticed some students to come in during the summer and work on various projects for the Spokane Renaissance Fair. They designed a logo for the Merfolk Pod of Spokane, a logo for the Knight of the Order of the Golden Apple, and ads for the Spokane Renaissance Fair on various social media platforms. One student also designed a playbill for stage left's admissions. Before the first week was over, they are looking forward to working with more community members throughout the year.
Great, thank you, K-Tech. Next up, we have our student advisory group. First report of the year, Luke Sharon, welcome. Let's turn it on. Probably at the bottom. And hold it for a second. No. Hold it for a couple seconds. Hold it for a second.
Hello.
There you
Oh,
go.
look at that.
There you go.
All right. So I want to start off with a few thank yous. Thank you, Dr. Hawker, Dr. Nelson, Miss Morrison, and Mr. Derrick for allowing us to continue our student advisor group this year. We are beyond excited to expand and resume this program. We also want to thank our spectacular school board members for inviting us to today's board meeting. My name is Luke Sharon. I go to Lake City High School. I'm my class's class president, and this year I'll be serving as the Student Advisory Group's vice chair. Last spring, we elected our SAG officers for this year. Dylan Jones was elected chair, I was elected vice chair, and Lindsay Overturf was elected third chair. Usually, Dylan and I will be attending these meetings together, but today, Dylan has a soccer game and can't be here. So for this school board meeting, I will be answering any questions and speaking to the board on behalf of the students of our public school district and our student advisory group. Our advisors this year are the same as the 2021-2022 school year. We have Charlene Babb as our elementary school advisor, Jennifer Nelson as our middle school advisor, and the wonderful Rachel Clarns as our high school advisor. SAG applications were due last Friday. Our 3 advisors will be meeting soon to discuss and select the new representatives for each grade level. Our first high school SAG meeting will be held on the 3rd week of October on that Thursday from 3 to 5. Our focuses this year we'll be focusing on, first, is providing student feedback of our dress code policy to the district office. In addition to the dress code, we'll focus on student comfortability and other concerns and feedback from our students, generally trying to gain a consensus and a scope of the feeling at our schools. We'll also be looking at any student-related procedural change beyond policy. If the board or the district have anything else they'd like us to focus on, please email us at sag@students.cdaschools.org. That's sag@students.cdaschools.org. I just wanted to say a massive thank you again to the board, and that concludes your monthly SAG update.
Thank you. Thank you, Luke. Next up, we have our Coeur d'Alene Education Association report. With Mr. Aaron Hayes, our CEA president. Welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for refilling my quota. I know I took some time in May, but I gave you a break. So, Chairwoman Smith, trustees, and district administration, thank you for your time and for all your work for this district. It's hard to believe, I have a hard time believing it's already a month into the year. Many teachers I speak throughout the district are pretty optimistic about this year. I know I was stressing out a lot on your behalf about things that were happening in the summer, but as we get back to the year, there's people in the schools ready to go and are excited about what's happening. Thank you to Dr. Nelson. As he explained a little bit in September, the mentor program for all the new teachers, which we have a lot of, is I've heard from new teachers on behalf of them. Thanks for really making sure they feel welcome, both informally and formally. I did want to bring up the this district continues to face a wide variety of really weird accusations, I just want to bring up and remind everybody of the Idaho statute 331222, where it says certificated employees of every school district shall be free from abuse by parents or other adults. And I'm sure the board agrees in the spirit of the statute. And there's no real legal issue here. In the event this would happen, we as teachers are here as a community to, reconcile and build things, and this law doesn't give us a tool for that. But I hope that as we perhaps in this year continue getting these sort of frivolous accusations, that as public figures, as we have our emails free to anyone who wants to email us or find us on social media or whatever, that we just recognize also that the teachers have agreed to perform our assignments made by the district in accordance with the highest professional standards. And we hope that the community and the board also respect that level of ethics that we hold ourselves to. Finally, just thank you very much for being willing to work with us to finalize the master contract that, as you know very, very well, I'm sure, went into the summer, but we figured it out. We really are appreciative of the work day issues that we were able to get language covered. And again, thank you very much for being willing to have us involved in the budget subcommittee process, which is, I think, starting pretty quick here, right? So I'll definitely be interested in listening to those as they go along. So that's all I have for this evening. As always, I'm happy to answer questions either now or via email later. And thank you very much again for your service to our community.
Aaron, I do have a couple of questions.
Yes, first time, thank you. Trustee.
I was really concerned when I read through your summary here, and so I took the liberty to reach out to as many teachers and as many buildings as I possibly could to get their feedback on what they were feeling and what they were feeling about their overall building atmosphere. And for the most part, they were all pretty confused as to where this would have come from. So I'm just curious if you have any examples for me, or if teachers are really feeling like they're being persecuted in what's going on right now.
Absolutely. I'll not take up too much of our time right now, especially with any issues regarding specific personnel. Obviously, that this isn't the space for it. The truth is, you're absolutely right. There are a lot of teachers. Most teachers are feeling comfortable here. I think the issue, and again, this becomes a question of how we interpret the spirit of this, but we've got a lot of very broad and general accusations coming at this district that I am not comfortable with when we have both national and local news covering things. And I think the thing to remember is that when we hear certain themes come up, the teachers are the ones teaching. And so if any accusations of things that are illegal, or as far as the weird accusation on national news that the state of Idaho was teaching like pornographic curriculum or something like that, those are not things that make teachers feel supported. And again, it's not like we could make any action on that. But there's a lot of other situations and topics and things where I feel like once people really start getting more engaged and really are feeling like they want to push an issue more, the next step will be to reach out to teachers. And that is an entirely acceptable thing, as long as we understand the professionalism and the communication on both sides. So I will be sure to send the board my collection of the different issues that that made me bring this up. I do want to validate that there are schools and there are parents who do an amazing job supporting their teachers, and that this is entirely something that we can continue. So,
Thank you, I appreciate it.
All right, thank you, and thank you for your service. We're going to move into the public comment portion of tonight's meeting. And I want to remind the public that while this is a meeting of the Board of Trustees that takes place in public, it is not a meeting with the public. It is a meeting of the board to conduct district business. The board does allow limited public comment on district-related items, and the public comment portion of this meeting will be limited to 45 minutes. Those wishing to address the board during this public comment period are limited to one comment not to exceed 3 minutes. At the designated time, you will be called to the podium. Please state your name and city of residence. Depending upon the number of patrons wishing to comment, and tonight I've got about 27 people on my list right now, and there's another 50 or so people outside. All those who sign up may not be given time to speak. We're not going to get through everyone tonight. If I determine that an individual statement is too lengthy, personally directed, abusive, or repetitive, the speaker's privilege to address the board may be terminated. Because of the diversity of issues, and right now the issue is sources of strength, at least that's what everyone signed up for today. Because of the diversity of issues, members of the board will not respond to public comment made during tonight's meeting. Instead, issues may be recorded and referred to the proper staff member for follow-up. If you did not get an opportunity to speak or have additional comments that you would like to be presented to the board, you may provide those comments in writing to the clerk of the board, who will ensure that the board members receive this additional commentary. If you have handouts for the board, please give them to the clerk, who will disseminate them on your behalf. Thank you. This evening, I will be calling people up. If you've already addressed the board on this topic, I would encourage you to potentially give your time to the next person, because I do know that there's people in the room who have not had a chance to publicly address the board on this topic, and some of the people on this list have. At 2 minutes and 45 seconds, I'll remind you that it's time to wrap up, okay? Because I'd really like to be able to move through as many people as possible. And at 3 minutes, we're gonna call it. I do have my phone. I am timing as well. And I will just encourage all of us that because of the diversity of opinions on this issue, that cheering, booing, clapping, all that kind of stuff will just take part of our 45 minutes. And I'd like to be able to hear from as many people as possible. So we'll just try and move things along that way. And I want to thank everyone for coming out this evening to continue the public comment portion on our sources of strength. All right. This evening, I would like to welcome first, I believe, Conrad Bella Woodall to the podium.
Hi, Conrad Woodall, Rathdrum. This is my daughter, Ella Woodall. She's 16. And before, it's actually her comments that I'm going to help her with. But just to let you know, I have about 25 years working with sexual assault and trauma survivors. In grad school, my thesis was on using self-defense as a form of exposure therapy. I created my own model of therapeutic self-defense, and I worked hand in hand with therapists, with trauma survivors. And the reason why my daughter is comfortable saying what she's going to say to you is because she has been there with me in these environments, listening to these horrific stories of trauma and abuse. So you're going to hear things that normal teenagers are not going to tell you, okay? So my daughter went to Post Falls Middle School from 6th to 8th grade, and she was exposed to the Sources of Strength program. I just found this out recently when I came home last month. So Ella, can you come up?
Yeah.
So can you just tell everybody about the suicide insults that your generation gets?
So when I was at Post Falls Middle School, the Sources of Strength was supposed to embrace positive attitudes and, you know, make it to where people are nicer. But we were getting texts and told that we should go kill ourselves. In person, just, you know.
So that's a common thing in your generation. That was kind of shocking to me. And you've been told personally to go kill yourself?
Yeah, multiple times.
Okay, did you ever witness anybody from the peer group and the Sources of Strength program telling other kids, your friends, to go kill themselves?
Yeah, I witnessed about 20 of them in person, through phone, on calls, through Snapchat, Instagram, all of it.
And this was mainly the girls, right? To be
Yeah,
fair.
it was
Yeah.
only the girls.
And what did you personally experience with just a few of the boy peer leaders? Now, again, we're not labeling all the peer leaders here, okay? We're just telling you specific instances of a few. Okay, so a few of the boys, what did you have happen?
A few of the boys would ask me and my friends to send nudes, and even if they didn't ask that, they would just send graphic pics of their junk, just for whatever.
Okay, and when was the first time that you got sent these types of pics? And I'm just talking about boys in general, because social media connects you to other schools. So you've had this from Coeur d'Alene, from the other kids in other schools, right? Not just Post Falls?
I've had it from all of the local schools.
And when was the first time you got sent pics like this?
5th grade.
And how many times have you been asked for nudes personally?
I can't keep count.
And your friends as well?
Yeah.
Okay. So the problem is...
And that's 2:45, please.
Okay,
wrap up.
if you look at the research, it's teen girls that are killing themselves. That's the uptick. And the research shows it's social media that's causing it. This program does not address any of that stuff. If you actually look at the research, we need to address it with primary physicians. So the research is there on programs that work. Sources of Strength is not it.
Thank you. Thank you both. Cody Diamond.
All right, so thank you, board members, for allowing me to speak to you this evening. I'm honored, and I'd like to share my experience. I'm Cody Diamond. I'm 16. I go to Lake City High School. I'd like to share my story about sources of strength and why I believe that it is an important part of schooling and also elementary schools. Throughout 14 years of my life, I had times where basically I had no one except my family. And that caused a strong sense of loneliness as I had no idea where my strengths were. I had no idea how to show my strengths. And I did not have a safe space to express who I was or anything to that extent. I was always pushed down by a feeling of overwhelming shyness, I'd say. And in this year and my sophomore year, I was exposed to Sources of Strength program, and it really helped me realize what I had been longing for so long, the push that allowed me to finally get myself out there and actually talk to people. And for the first time in my life, I'm proud to say that Sources of Strength has helped me find people that I can proudly call friends and people that I know are by my side. And the reason that I think it is important to have in schools, and not only in elementary schools, but all schools, is because I feel like if we included this at a younger age, I wouldn't have had to go through what I did. And I feel like if you know your strengths and you have a safe space at a younger age, you can stop yourself from having to deal with anxiety or paranoia, and you can put yourself out there earlier and therefore start being healthier mentally and physically at a younger age. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Cody. Tegan Pope? Rope, I'm sorry, I can't quite. Welcome.
Thank you for giving me this opportunity to speak tonight.
And hold on, I think, Tegan, you're going to need to speak into the microphone, and then, yeah, let's talk right into it so we can hear you, so the people online can hear you as well.
Good afternoon. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak tonight. My name is Tegan Pope. I'm 16 years old and I go to Lake City High School. I'm here tonight because I care so much about young kids' mental health. When I was in 4th grade, I didn't know anything about mental health. People tend to think that kids have nothing to be sad about, and they disregard their feelings. At the age of 9, I felt so alone and scared that I believed that I didn't deserve love. That year, my first suicide attempt took place. I believe that if I had resources available through Sources of Strength, that might have never happened. We need help educating young kids that it is okay to not be okay, and that they are never alone. It doesn't matter your age. It's not if life gets hard, it's when it gets hard. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Tegan. I know, let's try not to clap too. Sabrina Schuler.
I was born and raised in the conservative North Idaho town of St. Mary's. I have lived and taught in the Silver Valley for 11 years. I taught in Post Falls for 7 years, and this is my 8th year in Coeur d'Alene at Canfield Middle School. I have taught middle school in North Idaho for 22 years. I love teaching, I love my students, I love the communities I have served. Many of you here may not know why Sources of Strength came to the Coeur d'Alene School District. In the spring of 2018, we lost my husband, Troy Schuler, principal of Coeur d'Alene High School, to suicide. Following that same spring, we lost a student at Canfield to suicide and another student at Coeur d'Alene High School to suicide. All I can say is when you're a family who has lost someone to suicide, you know you would do anything you can to make sure others don't experience the trauma that comes with this kind of loss. One of these opportunities presented itself to me the following year when I became the Sources of Strength adult leader at Canfield. It has been a huge success at Canfield, whereas we have around 90 students involved in our program and 4 additional adult leaders, Doug Wood, Carrie Carter, Allie Robitaille, and Jenny Whiteside, who have been dedicated to the program since the beginning due to the positive impact it has had on our school climate at Canfield. What we love about the program is that it is proactive rather than reactive. We are not asking our students to be junior psychologists or to tell their sad stories. Rather, we encourage students to turn to their strengths when they are struggling, strengths that reflect conservative values. We encourage students to use family support when they are struggling. We encourage kids to name a trusted adult or mentor they can talk to. We encourage kids to tap into their healthy activities as a way of dealing with stress. Over the years, we have run campaigns in our school to spread messages of hope, help, and strength. At Canfield, we have had 2 No One Eats Alone days at lunch to encourage positive friends and the idea that everyone belongs at school. Students have learned about generosity through healthy food drives that benefit local pantries that directly support kids in our school district. Last spring, students painted rocks with positive messages and hiked Canfield Mountain to leave them behind for the community. This is a really, really good program. It is a small thing that has made a big difference. I much prefer spending my time preventing losses in our schools due to suicide than wondering afterwards how that loss happened and how we could have done things different. Thank you.
Thank you. Brianna Birdsall.
Good evening. Thank you for allowing me to address you this evening. My name is Brianna Birdsall. I am a school counselor at Winton Elementary, where I've been for 6 years. I'm also a proud mother to a first grader in the district. Although my primary title is mom, about 40 hours in the week, I'm referred to as Miss Bree, and I'm really proud of that. I'm a passionate Sources of Strength leader, a TBRI practitioner, a QPR trainer, and a member of our district's crisis response team. I love being a school counselor and being able to connect with all students. I secretly enjoy beating my students at Foursquare during lunch recess, but my passion lies entirely for meeting students' needs, partnering with teachers and families, and advocating for mental health. I genuinely hope that none of you in this room ever have to be in the position of hearing a 9-year-old say that they want to kill themselves, or have to refer an 11-year-old to KBH following a suicide attempt, or have to respond to a high school on behalf of the crisis assistance team following a completed suicide and having to inform staff and students of such, then subsequently having to respond 3 to 4 more times that same year. I hope none of you have to sit in a room with law enforcement and child protective services and watch as they shelter a sibling group due to parental substance use. I hope none of you ever have to look into a 6-year-old's eyes as they tell you they're living in their car. I hope none of you ever have to witness watching an 11-year-old write nothing on a piece of paper when a simple task that I give them is to write down your strengths, just one, and they wrote nothing. But I hope all of you at some point get to witness that very thing happen and another student go up and say, I'm going to tell you what you're good at, and I'm going to keep filling you that bucket for you, and watch as together they conquered that task. I'm proud to support SOS in our school, and I've seen amazing things happen. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Christy Shelley.
Thank you so much for your time. My name is Christy. I am a pediatric occupational therapist who has had the privilege of working in our community for 6.5 years now. And I can't put into words how grateful I was when I heard about this potential program being implemented, especially when I'm seeing such an increase in mental health distress, especially among young students. It has been shocking to see the number of suicidal ideation in kids as young as 6 and 5 that I'm now seeing. And as a community, we have to do better. This is just too much. I am afraid of if our kids are thinking of suicide this young, what happens in middle school and high school and young adulthood, because this is too much for our little kids. This program, I love that it doesn't just focus on the trauma, it doesn't focus on the negative aspects, but it gives you proactive strategies. Because what the research does show is that relationship and connection and healthy relationships are what actually heal the brain, that make us feel seen, valued, and heard. And this program allows for a greater community of people, and not everyone is going to do that. Some people are hurting, and hurting people hurt people, right? Especially in our high schools. But if we're starting younger in elementary school, these kids have a greater community of people who can make them feel seen, valued, and heard, who can show them that they are worthy when they don't believe that they have any worth, who can help encourage their voice when they don't feel like their voice matters and that nobody listens because nobody cares. And as a clinician who grew up in that kind of environment, I wish something like this had been implemented when I was a young child. So thank you so much for considering this. And I'm so encouraged that so many voices, both for and against, are here to have your voices heard, because that's what matters, that we come together as a community and make decisions, because we are all here to support our youth. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Lauren Bergheimer.
Hello, my name is Lauren Bergheimer. I am a pediatric speech-language pathologist at a local clinic. I heard about the SOS program from Christy, and it is my opinion personally and professionally that I think this is a fantastic, developmentally appropriate approach to opening up discussions in our elementary school kids that make them feel strengthened in all that they are doing. I agree that a program at an earlier age, presented in a developmentally appropriate way, is going to likely increase how this is going to be perceived by middle schoolers and high schoolers as well. We're giving kids those skills needed to build that resiliency from an early age, so that those walls are not already built high by the time they are in middle school and high school. This is where important change in community grows, and I think this is a fantastic approach. Thank you.
Thank you. Matt Edwards.
Good evening, board. Thank you for having me, allowing me to speak. For the record, I am not opposed to I'm not opposed to suicide prevention. It is precisely why I'm for suicide prevention that I'm speaking out against this particular curriculum, because I believe it to be a curriculum that is it's a divisive ideology masked as a mental health program. And I have to share a quick story because my son came home from school, and he no longer is in the school district. He goes to a public school based on situations of last year. So he goes to a private school, and he came home and he said, "Hey, Dad, I learned about the word integrity today." I was, wow. So we talked about that for a little bit. And by the time he told me this, I had already reviewed most of the sources of strength materials that was out for review. And he's 7 years old, and he's already learning about integrity. And I look at the sources of strength, which includes the Orwellian tactic of renaming a kindergarten game, Simon Says, that we all know, into Sources Say, which is preparing children to accept directions as long as sources say it is approved. I don't know what that has to do with suicide prevention. But back to the word integrity. When I listened to the young lady who spoke first here today talk about her experiences and the experiences of her friends, I feel pretty confident that as long as my 7-year-old keeps learning about words like integrity, that he will be less and less likely to be sending graphic photographs of himself or asking girls for nude pictures of them. So I decided to look through the rest of the curriculum. I looked through the field guide, I looked through the kindergarten guide, I looked through the 1st and 2nd grade guides for the word integrity. Do you know how many times the word integrity shows up in any of those 4 guides? 0. I looked for other words like honor, 0. Character. Well, the word character does show up, but it's about name your favorite character from a movie or a book. But as far as a character, who you are, 0. Innovation. There was a self-referencing to the innovation of suicide prevention programs, but nothing about creating good character people with innovation. There was nothing on loyalty, virtue, honesty, decency, responsibility, immoral, respect, or tolerance.
And we're close to 3, if you could wrap up.
None of those words were in any of this curriculum. And if we want to start by treating people with mental health problems, then we need to treat everybody with the respect they deserve by creating good citizens with integrity. Thank you.
Thank you. Megan Coons?
There we go. Greetings, Coeur d'Alene School Board of Trustees, Superintendent Hawker, and others. I didn't have this in my original writing, but I want to say thank you to the bravery and courageousness of the students that spoke about sources of strength. It took a lot of, like I said, bravery to do that, so thank you. My name is Megan Dardis Coons, and I'm a resident of Coeur d'Alene, a 15-year veteran of the social work profession, and a clinical assistant professor of social work. I am here today to voice support for adopting Sources of Strength as health curriculum within the district. Sources of Strength is an evidence-based practice designed to prevent suicide in children and youth, which we already have discussed today. Evidence-based practices are established as effective through scientific research and rigorous study. Thus, to be considered an evidence-based practice, it takes time, research, and proven outcomes. This statement should be enough for you to understand why it's important to ignore the misinformation regarding the outcomes of SOS that those against the program will share with you. The misinformation, and frankly lies, are baseless and unproven. The outcomes are proven and positive, and that's what matters. Within my role as a clinical professor, I supervise at times up to 20 MSW students completing field practicum experiences within the district and the Panhandle. What I have learned from conversations in the classroom and with agency providers is that our youth are struggling. A primary reason is because there are considerable wait lists in our area for therapy for youth. We do not have enough providers to see all the kiddos that need to be seen. This will indeed impact the well-being of the youth in our community. Adding SOS to the health curriculum will not be a solution for this problem, but it has the strong potential to be a life preserver for these kids while they wait to meet with a professional, which can take months. In closing, I implore you to adopt SOS as health curriculum for the district. The children and youth in Coeur d'Alene deserve the very best from us, and SOS is an excellent tool for the district's toolbox. One other thing I wanted to say is that I'm disappointed that myself and others need to continue to show up to these meetings to voice sanity and reason. I should be able to trust my community to do the right thing. Thank you.
Thank you. Sarah Lynch.
Good evening. I'm Dr. Sarah Lynch, a Hayden resident and a mom with 2 kids in the Coeur d'Alene School District, and I'm here to speak in support of the Sources of Strength curriculum. As a retired Air Force pilot with a background in aviation safety, as well as having earned my doctorate in public safety, I'm fully in support of programming that takes a proactive stance against violence and for mental health in our public schools. As the wise axiom goes, an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. We recently had this very discussion at Hayden Canyon Charter concerning the Start with Hello program, which unfortunately was received by a number of very vocal parents as an unwelcome political agenda. It was interesting to me that the hiring of an armed security guard equipped to respond to violent situations was embraced, while an attempt to intervene and prevent these situations altogether was met with resistance. One of the foundational tenets of emergency management is that crises, such as suicide and homicide, are symptoms of underlying systemic issues within our society. And unless we address these root causes, we'll be no closer to making our places of public education safer or to growing our children into resilient adults. To those who say, why can't we just let our kids be kids? I'm not sure how resigning ourselves and just accepting that violence in our schools is such a given, so much so that we'll hire armed guards to respond to those situations while doing absolutely nothing to prevent them in the first place, is letting our kids be kids. In the Air Force, we had a model called the Comprehensive Airman Fitness Program that included 4 domains of resilience: mental, physical, social, and spiritual. The Sources of Strength curriculum is simply a more expansive model with 8 parts geared towards children and specific to preventing suicide, bullying, and substance abuse. There's another saying that goes, all models are wrong, but some are useful. Sources of Strength, I think, is useful in that it generates a conversation with our children about how to seek help when faced with 3 of the biggest dangers that our kids face today. I would welcome the board and the community's continued discussion on other models of prevention that may be more perfect, but I do think that the outright refusal or failure to take any preventive steps to protect our children is not the right way to go. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Jane Clark.
Hello, my name is Jane. I'm a Coeur d'Alene native who grew up in the Coeur d'Alene school system. I'm here today to voice my support for the Sources of Strength program. I am a mother with 2 elementary school children currently enrolled in the Coeur d'Alene School District. It is my understanding that a lot of the opposition is coming from people who don't have children or don't have children currently enrolled. And they are some of the same people that are challenging books in the libraries and opposing the school levies or are against public school altogether. I don't want to see these people's feelings and misinformation take away a parent's right to choose what is best for their own child. Why should they get to take away opportunities from my children? A solution would be an option for parents to opt out their own children. I know some of the opposition says that Sources of Strength takes away from family or spiritual support, but that is completely untrue. Family and spiritual support are literally 2 of the 8 pillars. My daughter has participated in some of the Sources of Strength lessons, and I always found them fun, age appropriate, and they helped create great conversations between her and I. The Jason Foundation says, citing national data, that suicide was the leading cause of death in Idaho children 10 to 18, and the second in 18 to 22-year-olds for the year of 2019. This equates to losing an Idaho child every 5.98 days on average to suicide. Additionally, over 20% of Idaho teens contemplated and nearly 10% attempted suicide that year. It has also been reported that Idaho suicide rates have been on the rise since then. We also rank number 1 in the nation for cyberbullying, which could be a contributing factor. And the issues going on in our high school only prove that we need to support our kids even younger. Preventative measures in schools are our best solution. Please don't allow public education critics to spread lies and dictate the opportunities my children get. Programs like this will save Idaho lives. Please vote to protect our children and not for a political agenda with a false narrative about indoctrination in a not so subtle attempt to undermine teachers and destroy public education. Thank you.
Thank you. Kathy Mickles, thank you. Mickles.
My name is Kathy Mickles. I recently moved a year ago to the Coeur d'Alene area from the Seattle area. When I was in Seattle area, during the 80s, I served on the governor's task force on AIDS. It was during that time that Washington State dealt with the implementation of AIDS education in all of our schools. And it was at that time that I saw the forces behind this that were pushing ideologies and ideas that were undermining of the family and the parents. I saw it firsthand. I had a ringside seat. These ideas came from up here. They did not come from the parents and from the grassroots. And you are well-meaning people here, but the same thing is happening here, that well-meaning people are searching for solutions in the wrong places, and it's not in these non-academic curricula that you'll find your answers. It is, I've been introduced to many of the non-academic curriculums over in Western Washington, from self-esteem curricula, sex education, drug education, sexual harassment programs, you name it, we have it over there. And let me tell you, we have a mess over there. It's not working. Our schools are a disaster. It is a big experiment on our children, on our families, on our community, and our nation, and we are suffering the consequences for what we have put on our families in our community. So I ask you tonight to please to not follow the road that experiments with these programs by very well-meaning people. But this program is not the way to go. Somebody also did mention, just I think before me, about opting out. And I would say if you have to do this, then you need to opt your kids in to these programs if you want them. But again, I'm asking you, please don't follow the path that I have seen firsthand for 20 years when I was involved over there, because it will be a mistake. I guarantee it.
Thank you. Laura Van Voorhees.
Hello, Laura Van Voorhees Hayden, and I couldn't agree with you more. Thank you for being here. And I told you last summer that I was going to help educate you because you didn't say there was critical race theory. You said there's no critical race theory in Coeur d'Alene schools, and I'm going to give you a lesson right now. And the fact is that in the Sources of Strength Elementary Curriculum Overview, on page 4, there's a quote. Education does not change the world. Education changes people. People change the world. That's Paulo Freire. And who is Paulo Freire, and what does he mean by change? Paulo Freire, 1921 to 1997, was the Brazilian communist who, with his highly influential books, Pedagogy of the Oppressed, 1970, and especially his The Politics of Education, 1985, were the primary influences which accelerated the change or transformation towards the communist influence of education in the United States, including currently here in Coeur d'Alene. Freire's goal was to Marxify education and make students into social justice activists. Our Coeur d'Alene schools are Paulo Freire schools. When we see our children, I see our students, instead of the teachers leading their classes and asking fellow students about their lived experiences and feelings, instead of learning how to read, write, and do math, we are watching Paulo Freire in action. Peer-led groups, put in simple terms, peer-led groups and dialogue are tactics Freire advocated using to draw out a student's critical consciousness, or, to put it in simple terms, to ruthlessly criticize all that exists, including what parents say, what their clergy say, and to identify and exploit their oppression. If you have students feeling oppressed, you have angry students seeking revenge and ripe for revolutionary change. We've witnessed this very thing at university levels for decades. It is here in Kootenai County schools too. Administrators are currently pushing this change to be in every classroom at every school. Decades ago, the globalist Marxists found the Trojan horse to bring Paulo Freire tactics down to pre-K through 12 levels. Social emotional learning is the tool they've been refining all these years to bore into children's heads for thought and behavior control. Sources of Strength is the current iteration of this.
And that's
Coeur d'Alene-
2:45. I'm going to need you to wrap up.
Coeur d'Alene already uses Portrait of a Graduate second step equity framework to control and behavior regulation, thought control. Sources of Strength is being sold as suicide, anti-bullying, substance abuse prevention. It's not only deceivious, I call it an outright lie. Save Our Children rejects Sources of Strength.
Thank you. Chris Brooks.
Hello. Hello. Thank you for letting me be here tonight. My name is Chris Brooks, and I've lived in Coeur d'Alene for almost 35 years. My kids went to the Coeur d'Alene School District, and I am a retired school counselor from the Post Falls School District. Worked there in the district for about 20 years. And before that, I worked inpatient psychiatry at Sacred Heart Hospital. In my experience, I'm here to support Sources of Strength model. In my experience through the years with kids, all too often children are left feeling alone. They are left feeling as if they have no way to turn, nobody to turn to. And Sources of Strength provides that opportunity. Mental health and wellness is so important at all ages and critical for our children. Especially during the elementary school years, they're really developing friendships, learning how to take another person's perspective into account before they make their decisions and come to conclusions. And their ability to do that helps them build a foundation of confidence and strength that helps hold them through rough patches throughout their life. Children also learn best through play and doing. The Sources of Strength curriculum, through its strengths-based approach, builds protective factors and is a promotional model instead of just addressing problems as they occur. In my experience, especially at the middle school level, kids are brilliant. And at the elementary school level, kids are brilliant. They love to be a part of the solution. They love to reach out and help each other. And they want to be there for each other. Knowing they can influence what is going on in their life builds a feeling of confidence. Practicing it builds a sense of competence. The Sources of Strength model fosters that. I believe that it fosters that most effectively when all students are exposed to that active learning. They provide systems of support to each other by having the common skills and resources. Especially with the advent of social media, a child's world is a much more complicated place to navigate. Sources of Strength is a vehicle for that navigation by aspiring to building a welcoming, safe environment in our schools. Sources of Strength also helps us as adults to promote, foster, and insist on actions that reflect a safe and respectful learning environment. Thank you all for your time, and thank you for your service to our community.
Thank you. Wendy Smith.
Hi, my name is Wendy Smith. I'm a resident of Coeur d'Alene. I'm a licensed real estate broker. I have taught elementary kids for many years. I am a mother of 7 children, including 2 elementary-aged kids. I'd like to start out with some observations. This is my first time speaking at a school board meeting. I see there's a capacity of 72 people. Well before the meeting started, the doors were closed and the parking lot is full of concerned parents who were not allowed entry. This is concerning to me as a citizen. I did have some friends who are also parents of 5 kids. They had planned to come and meet me here. They're concerned about this curriculum. They would like to be a part and to listen to people speak in person, and they're denied entry as well. So I just wanted to go on record for making those observations tonight. I did review the Sources of Strength curriculum online, so thank you for that opportunity. My belief is that children in Idaho's public schools deserve an education in core subjects: math, language arts, science, and history. The Sources of Strength curriculum not only inhibits a student's ability to learn these core subjects, but it is non-academic. Here is one example. A regulation station creates a chaotic learning environment where any child can wander to the designated corner to explore their emotions by using a stress ball, glitter jar, listening to music on headphones, or even taking a pass out to see a counselor. Students will likely neglect studying and disrupt others. Children thrive where there are boundaries, and Sources of Strength removes the boundaries that create safe spaces for learning. This curriculum also encourages students to engage in New Age spiritual practices. Spirituality is one of the sources on the wheel, and these practices are taught and practiced right in the classroom. This actually violates the state's standard that health information should be factual, medically accurate, and objective. Teaching these spiritual practices in the classroom will undermine what parents are already teaching their children at home. Sources of Strength curriculum is also difficult to understand. The analogies don't seem to fit. We have tree roots, trunks, branches, and leaves, a railroad on and off the tracks, a possible ache in our tummies, and big feelings that lead to dysregulation and the need for control. The terms and examples used in Sources of Strength are confusing and condescending. The message, again, does not fit the state standard that health information should be factual.
And that's 2:45. I'll need you to wrap up.
Medically accurate, and objective. Sources of Strength curriculum should not be brought into the K-5 Coeur d'Alene schools. Our children deserve better. And I want to end with one more observation. Many of the people here admitted that they've already spoken at one of these school board meetings. And I did observe several concerned parents outside who may not have ever been allowed entry into a meeting like this. Thank you for allowing me to speak.
Thank you. Brian Smith.
Thank you for allowing me to speak. I have looked at the Sources of Strength health curriculum for kindergarten through 5th grade, and I am totally opposed to bringing it into the classroom. I found it to be mystical and feelings-oriented instead of factual and medically accurate and objective. As the Idaho statute standard requires, Sources of Strength curriculum will teach children to be self-centered and me-focused. Every time a child has strong feelings and they are instructed to rate their feelings as a scale of 1 to 5, with big emotions equaling to I'm dysregulated, this would be an untrue statement, and it will teach children that it is wrong to have emotions. Some children feel things more deeply than others. Some circumstances warrant big emotions. If you want to have a healthy, well-adjusted children who think of others and themselves well, then we need to choose health curriculum that aligns with Idaho state standards, one that is actually, factually, medically accurate, and objective. Thank you.
Thank you. Jeanette Lasseter.
Good afternoon, Board of Trustees, Superintendent Hawker, CDA district staff, and community members. My name is Jeanette Laster, and I'm the Executive Director of the Human Rights Education Institute, better known as HRAI, which serves 22,000 K-12 students annually in 55 school districts in eastern Washington, northern Idaho, and western Montana. I am also a mother of a son who graduated from Lake City High School 4 years ago. I am here tonight to express our support for the adoption of the Sources of Strength as a health curriculum resource. Recently, HREI was given an opportunity to provide Sources of Strength curricula on a community level. There has been an overwhelming need for interest for homeschool and youth community resources around mental wellness and suicide prevention. In 2020, more than 11,600 students expected to return to Idaho public schools that fall never showed up. This was according to the State Board of Education data. That's nearly twice as many as the average in years past. COVID-19 has displaced families and traditional schooling. Because of isolation, these families were at greater risk of depression, mental illness, and the potential for suicide. We have seen a 300% increase in reported bullying incidences in schools and within the community in the last year alone. And this is compared to the last 3 years. In 2020, 421 Idahoans died by suicide. That is 1.4 times the rate of the national average. Between 2014 and 18, 125 Idaho school children ages 6 to 18 died by suicide. 31 of those deaths were among children age 14 and younger, and that is a Kootenai County statistic. Nearly 10% of the Idaho high school students and 13% of Idaho Latino high school students attempted suicide in 2019. The national number of children experiencing anxiety or depression jumped 26% between 2016 and 2020. In Idaho, 12.6% of children between the ages of 3 and 17 had anxiety or depression in 2020, which is an increase from 11.4% in 2016. This all lends to low education scores and our ability to serve vulnerable students, and we expect these numbers to increase this year across the state. Development of a strong community-based peer-to-peer prevention program with alignment and messaging to our local school districts and expanding the potential for youth and their families to actively participate in activities that support mental wellness only strengthens our regional efforts to prevent suicide incidents. As a member of the Strengthening Families Regional Program, which is a strategy to increase family strengths, enhance child development, and reduce child abuse and neglect in the region, HREI initiatives include suicide prevention and the work of the collaborative network of local service and education providers. One of the overarching themes of this work is protection factors for children. Human rights protections and impacts, and especially children's rights around health and safety, education, and discrimination are directly tied to successful interventions in suicide and bullying prevention. Please keep this program within our schools and our community. Thank you.
Thank you. 6:10 tonight will bring us to our 45 minutes. I'm going to finish with this last public comment. I know that doesn't reach everyone who wanted to give comment tonight, but Ann Seddon, you will be our last comment for this evening.
Is this on?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, Ann Seddon, Coeur d'Alene, Idaho. First of all, it seems that the people who got here early are mostly the people in favor. There's a whole raft of people I know outside who feel differently. And I really do not think this should be cut off at this point. And I also think that the opposing view on sources of strength should be listened to more, have more time. I am not opposed to public schools. I'm a former school teacher and a parent. And really, quite frankly, it made me sad and sort of angry when people were saying that I'm likely to be spreading lies, hysteria, and untruths. I simply care. My belief is, and I have looked at this curriculum, that pushing all children to seek mentors without knowledge of their parents, which this program does, is dangerous. These young children do not know who they can trust and cannot set them, and this can set them up for grooming and worse. 2, the program redefines family. Check out lesson 5.1. It definitely encourages children to choose their own family members without consulting their parents. 3, children are assigned to bring a mentor to school. There's an invitation. It's addressed to the mentor. Has no mention or reference of the parent, nor parent attendance. 4, the lessons are based on group therapy models. Private information and feelings will be revealed in a group or partner. Knowing the nature of many 4th and 5th grade girls, this will feed into the ability to bully, which is a severe problem in Post Falls that has this program. We all know mentors can be valuable. We all know that trained counselors are valuable. However, this program is not the right program for young children. 5, I know the staff wants the best for children, but having just come off the scandal and the crime of a Coeur d'Alene teacher molesting a girl for 3 years in the district, this is not the time for this program.
And this is 2 minutes and 45 seconds, so I'll need you to wrap
I
it up.
know the role of trained counselors is important. However, having recently had a counselor encourage a very young child to accept being a boy without parent notification means trust needs to be rebuilt.
And that's 3 minutes.
Give me one more on the last speaker. I respect the hard work of teachers and I admired their dedication. Please do not add more to their duties. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And thank you, hardworking teachers.
Thank you. Let's give everyone a round of applause. Thank you so much. We got through 18 public comments. I appreciate all of that. I appreciate being able to move quickly through that. And then we're going to hear, in a few minutes, we'll hear more of a report on the overall public comments. And because we did receive a number of previous comments as well regarding sources of strength. So we're going to come back to that in a few minutes. Because next up, first of all, I want to make sure that Trustee Bierke, are you still with us online?
Yes, I am.
Hi, all right, we just wanted to check.
Hi.
We're going to move into our consent agenda right now. Do I have a motion to approve our consent agenda tonight?
So moved.
Is there a second?
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Nope, and did you hear? I heard Trustee Bierke said aye. Great, so that approves our consent agenda for this evening. Next up, we have our board consent additional information. Is there any questions on any of those topics for this evening? Or Dr. Hucker, is there anything you'd like to offer up?
Stand for questions if anybody has any. That's all just information items on there, textbook proposals and old library books that have run their course and are all used up, being disposed of, things like that. It's just information items.
Could you just quickly maybe expand on the tutor.com? And I believe that's part of our learning loss funds that we're using towards that.
That is correct, yes. Tutor.com will provide, through this offering, up to 1,000 students, 24-hour-a-day access to various tutoring. We certainly think it's going to be a great option for our CDVA students who are already online, so that they can actually build relationships with those tutors, and the tutors can get to know their needs and help them along in all different subjects. We're piloting this for just 1,000 students district-wide at this juncture.
So some of the students will not be in the virtual academy. Some of them will be in the regular?
That is correct. Yeah, we don't have 1,000.
Person schools.
Yeah, we have just a little over 100 students that are in the CDVA, and I'm not sure if they'll all obviously use the program, but there'll be great opportunities for other students. We know that even the Venture High School could be a good avenue for some additional tutoring. It just opens that door for kids. Sometimes kids want some help on a Friday night at 9 o'clock, and maybe the teacher of the course is just not available to respond to an email or something at that time. But this tutor.com would provide that opportunity.
How will we decide which kids have the opportunity?
That's a great question, and we're stepping through that process right now. We for sure have identified the CDVA students to start with, and I'm looking around to see if anybody else. I see Dr. Nelson headed up to the mic. Seth has been paramount working with this, and you can see we asked some cabinet folks not to attend tonight so that we could save space to try to get more crowd members to be able to come in. So Seth is not here with us today, but Dr. Nelson, do you want to add a few comments to that question?
I'm glad to. Trustee Tenbrink, Trustee Smith, Superintendent Hawker, and members of the board. It is there. I just wasn't very close to it. These are initial licenses. Therefore, it's a flexible contract. We wanted to make sure that we were doing a ramped up approach to it. So by no means will students be turned away. They are metered first at 1,000 licenses, but then upon additional purchase orders, we can add licenses in. We just didn't want to license the entire district, not knowing where that usage would be. But we will have a flexible approach. We have a dashboard that we can see how those licenses are being used, what content areas are being addressed, and then adjust the licenses beforehand.
Terrific, thank you. Any additional questions on that? No, hearing none then. Trustee Bierke, any questions?
No, I'm okay right now, thanks.
All right, thank you. All right, next up then is our health curriculum sources of strength resource adoption, and Dr. Hawker, who will be presenting this evening.
Yes, we're going to turn it over to Mr. Keith Orchard, who will address the board, and then Katie Grotman.
Hello, I'm not Keith. My name is Raylan Loken, and I'm a licensed master social worker and the mental health specialist for Coeur d'Alene Schools. I appreciate each and every one of you for being here. We are all, whether we are for or against sources of strength, here because we care a lot about our students. We all have a different lens in which we view the world. My lens is trauma-informed. I have 8 adopted children in my family and worked for child welfare for 8 years. I then worked in special education with some of our most challenging students. My worldview is through the mental health perspective. I have spent my career studying the human brain, how it develops, and how it changes based on our life experiences. Let me break it down. Our brains develop from the bottom up. First our brainstem, then our midbrain, then the very top portion of our brain. When a child's needs are met, and if they do not experience prolonged trauma, they tend to do better in school because their brains are wired correctly. They can regulate themselves and access the top portion of their brain, which is in charge of learning. But when we experience trauma such as abuse, neglect, household dysfunction, or medical trauma, especially when our brains are developing as children, the structure of our brain develops differently. When we are in fear, we use our bottom brain, which is in charge of our fight or flight response system. The bottom portion of the brain becomes stronger if it is utilized the most. Brains, much like war victims with PTSD, begin to view the world as an unsafe place by default. Fireworks become gunshots, a raised voice, or the drop of a pencil sends us into fight or flight. Many of you have asked us to focus solely on academics. If you want us to rank higher academically, we have to teach skills to access the learning part of our brain. But Idaho is struggling, and more children are entering our school system with the inability to access learning for various reasons. Idaho ranks 5th highest in the nation for children who have experienced 3 or more adverse childhood experiences. Idaho ranks 5th for suicides. Suicide is the second leading cause of death for ages 10 to 24. The Youth Risk Behaviors Survey from 2019 states that 8.9% of youth in grades 9 to 12 responded that they had made at least one suicide attempt in the past 12 months. To break this down, this means for every high school class you walk into, there will be, on average, 2 students who will make a suicide attempt this year. Lastly, 132 students in Kootenai County were in juvenile detention center last school year, with 23 being from our district. Furthermore, there were 460 children in Kootenai Behavioral Health last year, with 67 being from our district. If we can teach children to build up their strengths and resilience, the hope is that they can withstand hard times as middle schoolers, high schoolers, and as young adults. Please help us build a healthier future for our community. Thank you for your time.
Hi. Now it's Keith's turn. Hi, good evening, everybody. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it, and thank you all for showing up. I'm Keith Orchard, the mental health coordinator for the district and a licensed clinical social worker. And I think the people who spoke earlier, including the 3 courageous youth, told us their experiences. And so I think we all understand that we have a problem. We know, and like Ella's problem, like that's a big deal. And it saddens me that she's experienced that and those other kids. The question is, what do we do about it? And there are a lot of curricula that come across my desk every couple of weeks. There's a national program selling a program to us or giving us the next greatest best thing. And we say no to all of them because our community has been very clear about what they want. And I would like to tell you why we put sources of strength forward. The first thing is that people said they don't want to talk about mental health all the time. They want a program that is positive and hopeful. And they don't want counselors and teachers constantly talking about depression, anxiety, bullying, which is why Sources of Strength is so good. It talks about strengths and positivity and resources. People say they want a program that works. And as Raylan was talking about, the ACEs program let us know that when you have many adverse childhood experiences, early stress and trauma leads to many poor physical health, mental health, behavioral outcomes. And what we know through research is that resiliency is the one thing that can overcome that. Because why do some kids grow up in really hard circumstances and still do okay? Well, lots of factors, but one of them is that they have many, many resilience factors, external and internal. And the more resilience factors they have can override, can weigh out, and help balance them. And that's another reason. And everything that's on the Sources of Strength wheel are positive and resilience factors. And that's why we chose that one. We also chose it because our community said very clearly, we do not want lessons that are against our personal values. Very specifically, they said, we do not want critical race theory. And we agree, especially at the elementary school, but anywhere, we agree with that. And we scoured this curriculum. It does not have the word race, ethnicity, cultural heritage, privilege, oppression, social justice. It does not teach that. We don't want that, and it's not in this curriculum. That's one of the reasons why we took it. They also do not want us teaching kids about sex or gender identity, and we agree. We couldn't agree more. And this curriculum does not mention sex or gender identity. There was one reference that was not in any lessons. It was for the teacher's notes, and we have struck that and eliminated that from the curriculum. People said they want a curriculum that's cost effective, and this one is not it's expensive and it's not free, except we have it paid for. It is very cost effective for the school district. All of the initial training and implementation is free, and the ongoing costs will be minimal and easy to budget. The community spoke, and I think we'll find this out. So we've had an open comment for a long time. We've heard lots of comments. Not everyone agrees, but of the 230 comments and letters that we received, over 85% of them said they support this program. And in today's environment, that's pretty overwhelming evidence. That is a strong support. And of course, parents are always allowed to opt out of any program that they disagree with. And finally, we're not alone in using this curriculum. We're not doing something extreme or radical. It's part of the Idaho Lives Project and the State Department of Education. They have rolled this out for years. There's 156 Idaho schools currently with Sources of Strength programs. And Right now, they are opening up new classes, offering 30 grant opportunities for 30 more elementary schools in the state of Idaho. It is in Idaho for a reason, because it respects our values, it respects our beliefs, and it is positive and helpful. Finally, or lastly on this, the Youth Suicide Prevention Program states, or our procedure, 3530E, states that we must provide developmentally appropriate, student-centered education materials on suicide prevention in the curriculum of all K through 12 health classes. So Sources of Strength is our way to satisfy this requirement. So if we say no to Sources of Strength, then we need to say yes to something else in order to satisfy that requirement or change our policy, one or the other. And finally, I'd just like you to say yes. And particularly not just to this program, but say yes to our educators, our teachers. It's been a little rough out there for the last few years for a lot of reasons. And kids, we all agree in here that kids need more support than ever. And if you trust your teachers and your counselors to be professionals and to do their jobs with integrity and balance and give them the tools they're asking for, we can then allow them to do what they have dedicated their lives to do, serving our kids and our community. So thank you for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Ms. Grotman?
Yes. Do we have the slides? Thank you. So I just want to give a little bit of information tonight about the comments that we received. We put this out to comment in mid-August because we wanted to give a little bit more time. Generally, we just go from one board meeting, regular board meeting, to the next. But a board or a committee member rightly pointed out that due to Labor Day, that wouldn't provide as big a window as we would normally hope for. So we put it out for a little bit longer than we normally would. We also were able to, which I've never had happen before, put the entirety of the curriculum out on the web for anybody to be able to preview in its entirety. Normally there are proprietary reasons why we can't do that, but Sources of Strength allowed us to do that for the duration of our review period. So we put it out, and the results are, I'm not sure if oh, there we go. Okay. Of the online responses, we received 220 online responses. Of those responses, 85% or 187 of the respondents said they approved of this resource. 13.6% or 30 of the respondents said they did not approve of this resource. And 1.4% or 3 of the respondents said they were unsure or other. And if I wanted to break that down a little bit more, because we know that some of the respondents did put that they had children in our district. So of the respondents who said that they had children in our district, 84%, that was 114 by the way, total, who said that they had children in our district. 84% or 96 of the respondents said they approved of the curriculum resource. 15% or 17 of the respondents said they did not approve of the resource, and 1% or 1 of the respondents who had a child in our district said they were unsure or either or other. So those were the online responses that we received. We also received letters from individuals, and this is through the period up till September 26th. Of those, we received 13 letters from people who were already not represented in online form. Some people submitted a letter and responded to the online form. So I'm only looking at the people who just responded via letter. And 11, the main idea of their letter was in favor, and 2 were against. We also received some letters from groups or organizations. We received one from America First Legal that was against Sources of Strength. And then we received one from Blue Cross of Idaho Foundation for Health that was in support. one from Mark Lomurray, who is the president of Sources of Strength, which would, of course, be in support. And then we received one from SPAN, which is Suicide Prevention Action Network of North Idaho, which was also in support. Finally, we had 8 in-person reviews. So 8 people came into the district office and read the curriculum in person and filled those out. And of those 8 reviews, 7 were against the curriculum and 1 was in favor. So in summary, the majority of the folks who were able to review and spend time reviewing this resource did say that they were in favor of us continuing to use that. So based on the committee's recommendation and based on the public review, we are asking you tonight to please consider adopting this for the Coeur d'Alene School District. And I stand for questions.
Thank you. Trustees, questions? Or are we ready for comments? We've had workshops.
So one of the things that came up in people who had concerns about the program was time away from classroom instruction. Can you describe for us, I understand there'll be some variation between different schools, but can you give us examples of the time spent in this program?
Yes. So one school, Winton Elementary, for example, spends about 20 to 30 minutes weekly as sort of a special. So like as kids would go to library once a week or go to PE once a week, it's a special for them. And so they would get Sources of Strength once a week for about 20 to 30 minutes. Another school in our district does it about every other week with students. Some right now are looking at doing it once a month as part of a push-in with counselors. So there's a varying amount of time, anywhere between 2 hours a month to maybe 30 minutes a month.
Another concern that came up a lot was teachers not being trained for this work. Can you speak to that?
Yes. So the model is that only the people who are trained in this would be delivering the curriculum. Teachers would be, so if a teacher hadn't been trained in this, then they might have, for example, a counselor come in and work with students on it, and they would be possibly there while the counselor's working with them, but only teachers and counselors who receive this training would be delivering it to students.
Ms. Groutman, I believe there's 5 elementary schools currently in our district that piloted Sources of Strength last year.
I believe
Around
that's
there.
correct, yes.
So the other 6, I believe, we'd have 6 other elementary schools, are still doing some sort of counselor time as part of the specials rotation. Is that correct?
Correct.
And what are they using for curriculum?
Well, so we would all continue to use Second Step, because that's part of our curriculum right now too. Like it addresses things like stranger danger, but right now they're pulling from a variety of places.
So they're grabbing supplemental resources to fill that time that they have with the kids, probably to address things that are coming up that they're seeing, bullying or teasing, those sorts of things?
Correct.
Thank you.
Any additional questions, or we can each have a comment?
I'm just one more question, I guess, just along that line. So this isn't creating more time away from core academic instruction. It's just a new resource in that period that's already available. Is that correct?
Correct.
All right. Not hearing any questions, I think each of us might have a comment at this point, and so would anyone like to comment, or Ms. Bierke as well? What's that? Leslie,
I'm
Ms.
here.
Bierke, do you have any questions this evening, or?
No, No, I don't have any questions. I was able to ask a ton of questions at our workshop, but I do have a statement, but I can read that whenever we're ready to do that.
No, I think that's time now just for each of us to make our comments, and then we'll see where the discussion goes from there. So.
Okay. So you want me to go
Yeah,
first?
why don't you go ahead and make your comments then? That'd be great. Thank you.
Okay. I'm just going to read something that I typed up for the sake of time since I'm not there. So I'm just going to go ahead and read it. I hope everyone can hear me.
Yep, we can
I've
hear
spent
you.
a lot of time. I'm going to go ahead and start. I've spent a lot of time thoroughly reviewing the curriculum that was provided to me by the district. During our workshop, I had the opportunity to ask a lot of questions of our review committee and read their report. In addition, I have spent hours researching and educating myself on this program. Being an educator, 25 years at the K-5 level, I'm keenly aware of the complex issues that some of our students face and the challenge of wanting to help our students succeed when they are struggling. I'm hearing an echo. Can you still hear me?
We can still hear you, yes.
Okay, good. While Sources of Strength is used at the secondary level and calls itself a best practices youth suicide prevention, there is little evidence data to suggest that it reduces suicide rates, and there is no evidence for this at the elementary level. Much of the content is not age appropriate and creates a one-size-fits-all program that fails to address the individual needs that some of our students have. Rather than expect all students to comply to a singular defined approach, it would be better to address the needs of our most vulnerable students in a more private setting. I could elaborate with my other concerns, but due to the circumstances of me not being there in person, I will keep it brief. There are too many red flags for me to give my support to adopting this district-wide.
Thank you, Trustee Bierke. Other trustees' comments or ready?
I'll go.
Thanks.
But as part of this discussion in our community, there's been a discussion about some real issues that our kids face. Our kids face bullying. Our kids face pressure and peer pressure, both in person and the pressures that social media bring into their lives. Our kids face people misusing social media and other tools to harass, both sexually and otherwise. These are real issues that our kids have, and our kids need their parents. Our kid needs their parents to set some guidelines for them, to have some frank conversations with them, to make some rules for them. Our kids also need our community. Then our community can help in some ways, and I think Sources of Strength is one of those ways that our communities can help. They can help our kids build resilience. They can help our kids develop the strengths they need to deal with these hard things. I have teenagers. I know they're hard things. And I want my kids to have all the tools they can have to deal with that. As I read this curriculum, and I read the whole curriculum, it took a while. There are lessons in there I wish my kids had had in elementary. I think they would have been really helpful for my kids at the time. And that actually was something that was echoed in a lot of our public comments. A lot of our public comments included people saying they wished their kids had had access to this when they were younger. So I'm with the 85% of the parents and community members, and I support Sources of Strength at our elementary level. I do want to recognize the rights of parents who don't want their kids to participate. You are welcome to opt out of almost anything in our school district. But I wonder if we could do some sort of specific disclosure to parents that this program is being used, invite them to review the materials if they have concerns, rather than wait for parents to ask for an opt-out. Maybe we just make sure all parents know we're using it and invite them to review it, would be my preference, I think.
Thank you. And I believe I saw language somewhere in our packet about that very topic that.
Yeah, so I actually sent this idea to Dr. Hawker
Okay.
Previously, and so I think.
Okay,
yeah.
thank you.
So I have a lot that I wanted to say about this, so I went ahead and wrote a statement that I would like to read. I spent many hours researching, observing, and attending sources of strength training opportunities, as well as speaking to students and teachers that have been a part of the program firsthand. While on the surface, this program seems to be a wonderful solution to a growing epidemic of youth suicide, I've come to recognize that this is not the one-size-fits-all solution to the problem that the district is hoping for. I've come across many red flags and concerns that have caused me to believe that this is not the program that we should be using in our district. Granted, we do need something. Considering this is touted to be a research-based upstream intervention, there is only one significant study on SOS. That being said, I've been directed to studies on each of the strengths on the wheel. When looking at the wheel of strengths, we've been asked to consider the evidence behind each piece of that pie. And yes, individually, each is shown to foster resiliency. But we must consider that when put together and directed by the school, they may not have the effect or influence that is intended. Since SOS was implemented in Coeur d'Alene schools 10 years ago, suicide rates have continued to rise. The same can be said about anti-bullying campaigns utilized in many districts, including ours, through the years. Since the COVID-19 pandemic, we have experienced an epidemic of children lacking in emotional and social skills, causing the classrooms to be places where children are struggling to regulate and participate in regular social and instructional encounters. I've reached out to many primary teachers asking what they believe could affect this dynamic. Resoundingly, they have responded that stronger character training in K through 3 would alleviate many of the issues that they face day to day, with extra support in the classrooms and then targeted intervention beyond. They want us to trust them to know their students and see the red flags that will lead them to referring students to help beyond what can be attained in the classroom setting. There have been many concerns voiced about the Wheel of Strength. I reached out to multiple mental health professionals for advice on this subject. Dr. Janet Gorley, PMH and PBC of Prairie Family Medicine, stated concerns about the interpretation of the strengths on the wheel being different from that of what individual families would agree with, as well as this not being the place of the school to interpret for our children. Also, why is the school attempting to take on a role traditionally held by the family unit, medical and health professionals, and faith leaders? She stated that this creates an environment that places the student in a position of being subservient to the school. There is a concern of the school setting the agenda for the Wheel of Strengths and that not supporting what each individual family deems as appropriate. She also expressed that the materials are simply just not age appropriate for K through 5, all of which can and will likely lead to an increase in adverse behaviors amongst those that is intended to help. And she did go and review all of the curriculum for K through 5 or 6. From the Just Say No campaigns to the no tolerance policies to the No Child Left Behind, STD education, suicide prevention programs, and anti-bullying programs, all have statistically failed our students nationwide. This is supported by the International Journal of Violence in Schools, Rethinking Effective Bullying and Violence Prevention Efforts, along with 5 meta-analytic studies published in peer-reviewed publications focused on the efficacy of school-based bullying prevention programs, showing that these programs vary between no effects at all to low effects across the country and contexts. These bullying prevention programs parallel SOS in the use of peer involvement to implement change, published in Child Development Perspectives, a journal of the Society for Research in Child Development in 2020. Many school bullying programs encourage and train peer bystanders or leaders to get actively involved in assisting with possible instances of bullying. Although this approach is common and well-intended, there is no evidence that it helps our victims. Encouraging peers to actively defend victims of bullying may actually produce adverse outcomes for victims, pushing those that suffer underground. Having lots of peers involved in makes situations more public, which can be damaging to the social reputation of victims. Training students to intervene in bullying also has the potential of leading to overuse of peer defense strategies because of benefits to helpers, such as making helpers feel like they have higher status or increasing helpers' feelings of belonging in school. These studies show that schools should avoid using strategies that boost peer visibility of victimization, for example, identifying a victim in a class meeting or circle time. Programs that enlist fellow students to intervene or help support the victims can actually lead to an increase in bullying and make it worse for victims. These concerns are backed by the testimony of the 16-year-old girl that was here earlier, as well as my own daughter who was introduced to SOS at Lakes Middle School last year, and her friends who wish to remain anonymous. They testify that they don't know a single person at school who hasn't been told by someone in their school, including those who are peer leaders, that they should go kill themselves. These are peer leaders that they spent time with during SOS peer leader training at school. These girls have been cornered by groups of girls that learned of traumas and perceived weaknesses during SOS training and then used that knowledge as leverage against them. Peer leaders lead to peers having intimate knowledge of other students, which can and does lead to that knowledge being used as ammo for bullying and intimidation. Bullying is one of the main precursors to acts of suicide. Knowing this, we must be extremely cautious concerning anything that may lead to increased instances of bullying. By having our children reveal sensitive information during circle time, we are opening them up to bullying and being ostracized. Bullies can and will use this sensitive information to further their attacks on our most vulnerable students, and SOS makes this information readily available to them. These are the types of behavior that lead to suicidal thoughts in the victims that are recipients of this abuse. This certainly does not cover all of the concerns voiced by many in our community, but learning these facts about SOS is enough for me to say I can't in good conscience as a mother or board member be in favor of this program. I would definitely like to explore what other options may be available in our district in place of the proposed SOS curriculum.
Thank you.
Just real quick, Trustee Anderton, you mentioned 10 years for sources of strength in our district, and I believe a commenter or someone who emailed said that before. I'm just wondering where that came from, because as far as my knowledge, and what Ms. Schuler shared today is it came in 4 years ago at our high school and secondary level.
Maybe that was a slip of my information on that part, please.
Okay. I thought I missed something. I'm going to speak, and I'll leave the last word for you, and I feel so unprepared because I didn't prepare any written comments, but...
I think it was actually Idaho State that I was referring to on that, I'm sorry.
I think a couple weeks ago, I mentioned we were talking about library books, or a couple months ago. And as a dad of 4 daughters, I said, I am far more concerned about social media and the internet than books in our library. And I mean that, and I think Ella's story that she shared today is proof of that. And I think we all know, we all have daughters, we all know of these instances like this, whether it's directly to our own children or to their friends or people they know. And it's a problem, as Heather said. So, I don't view Sources of Strength as some magic program that's going to come in and fix all of our issues. But I think someone referred to it as a tool in the tool bag. And I do agree it is that. This is our 4th year of having Sources of Strength in our secondary schools, our middle school and high schools, and we have hundreds of parents and students volunteering their students into those programs because that is a volunteer-based program. And in my time on the board, which has encompassed all 4 of those years, I have never received a complaint about Sources of Strength as a board member. And to me, that's powerful. Also, the fact that 85% of the people who surveyed, and we put this out for a long time, 6 weeks is a long time in our district to have something out for comment, and it was a good collection of comments that came, 240-ish. But to have 85% in support in this climate that public education's in, I think is powerful. I recognize that there are 15% of the folks that had students in our school, and they're not comfortable with this. Luckily for them, policy and Idaho state law, if we were to adopt this, would allow them to opt out. The state law would be, I had it here somewhere. Would be 321012 is what I had written down, which would be parental rights in direction of education of children. And in our district policy, it'd be policies 2425 and 2340, which are the opt-outs that allow a parent to opt out any curriculum in our district that they don't agree with either morally or ethically, I believe are the provisions there. I agree with Trustee Timbrink that I think it's important in this program at the elementary level that parents be given notice each year if we are to approve it, and that they be given the opportunity to opt out beforehand. And with those 2 conditions, I'd be supportive. I guess the other condition I would request would be that this program only be delivered by a trained facilitator. So, and I've written a motion in that regard with those three elements that I would support.
All right. Thank you. And so maybe before we get to that, first of all, I just want to thank the community. I think in my 3 years on the board, haven't had, I think this is probably the most thorough vetting of a piece of curriculum that I've seen in the last 3 years. The most extensive time that we've had it out for public comment as well. And so, in my opinion, it is proactive. It is upstream. It does give common language to all of our schools. And I appreciated what one of our committee members said. And he came into the committee saying that he was on the more conservative end of it. And he appreciated at the end, after having gone through the committee, is that it really gave all of our teachers and our schools common language to address this. And so I appreciate that. It is simply one tool in our toolbox. Our kids need their families. They need their churches and synagogues. They need the people in their lives. They need their coaches. They need their teachers. And so, Mr. Orchard, you asked for my my yes tonight, and so this will be my yes and I appreciate what you wrote or will read here in a minute, Mr. Morsrow. And I would want to recognize tonight that in the last 3 years that I've been on the board, kids, students, and teachers have died in our community, and we need to continue to recognize that. This is one piece of working to build kids, create support, and those kids and those teachers and those community members that have died in the last years that I've been sitting on this board. It's too many. This won't solve that, wipe that away, but it's another tool that we can use to come together as a community. So thank you for that. Trustee Morsrow, do you, unless there's any more comments, Trustee Bierke, do you have any comments as well? Any additional comments? All right.
No.
I have a motion I'd like to read, but before I do, I just want to point out, I think that was Jason Wood. That was a committee member
sorry,
that
I couldn't
that
find
spoke
his
to
name,
that
but yeah, Jason, and so.
The workshop we had. And his comment was basically, is it perfect? No, but it's a document. It's something that a parent can go to review and decide, is this right for our family? And I think that's important. It's part of the question I was getting to with Ms. Krautman there is, without a district-wide approved curriculum, there is no document for parents to go review to decide if they want to opt out to. It's counselors maybe doing things week to week, or they see something in a journal that they pull into a lesson. And so to me, that's another important piece of it, is that this gives a defined curriculum to that 30 to 45 minutes of counselor time that's happening weekly or bi-weekly, kind of depending on the school, that a parent can review it and have an opt-out and have a voice in that. So.
Thank you.
Are you ready for a motion?
Yeah, we're ready for a motion. Thank you.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the Sources of Strength curriculum for K through 5 instruction to be delivered by a trained facilitator. Prior to the start of Sources of Strength instruction each year, parents and guardians will be notified, provided access to the curriculum, and given the opportunity to opt out.
Can we add with the provisions from the committee had a couple alterations that they suggested? Can we add that to the motion?
Sure, I'd modify my motion to approve the Sources of Strength recommendation as recommended from the committee with, I know they had at least one item struck, one lesson.
Not struck, but that it would need an opt-in. It addressed suicide specifically. It was a optional lesson that could be pulled in should circumstances warrant it. So there was that lesson that would be.
And there was a gender something in the teacher workbook, right?
The second was that there was, it talked about, it made a mention to the instructor, and it discussed something about kids could be sad if they're, and it talked about like gender, not using the bathroom of their gender or something like that. So we recommend, or the committee recommended that just be struck from the curriculum altogether.
Did we get that full motion?
Trustee Smith, would it
Trustee-
simply work to just, or excuse me, Chair Smith, would it simply work to just say as accept the recommendation as recommended by the committee with Trustee Morris Rowe's recommendations as well?
I think so.
attempted
Does
to
it-
do that. Did
You
I do that?
attempted, yeah.
I think to
So-
amend it that the, to approve the sources of strength curriculum as recommended by the committee for instruction to be delivered by a trained facilitator prior to the start of sources of strength instruction each year. Parents or guardians will be notified, provided access to curriculum, and given the opportunity to opt out.
Is there a second?
I'll second that motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
No.
Aye.
No.
No.
Aye.
So we got that. 2 nays, 3, 4. Okay. So motion passes. I would like to say thank you to all those that have been working on sources of strength for the last years that it has been in our district, and for all your hard work on that. And so, thank you. All right. 4 more action items. All right. Thank you, trustees, for all your work, and thank you to the community. Let's go on here. We next up have our policy 5750. All right. All right. We're going to do policy 5750, which, Dr. Hawker, do you have anything to present on that?
I do. This is second reading. Brought this to you last month at the board meeting. This policy 5750 is the employment of retired teachers and administrators. It allows us to follow a state law that is allowing us to hire people that are already potentially retired. This law lets us do this through 2026, so it's not forever, but I know there's conversations to perhaps change or lift that expiration date of this current ability as well. So it's our recommendation the board approve policy 5750 as presented.
Great. Is there any questions or anything? Is there a motion?
I'll make a I'll make a motion to approve policy 5750 as presented.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
And Ms. Bierke, are you still with us, or did we lose you?
No, I'm here. Sorry. Aye.
Aye. Yep, so that is, motion passes with all 5 ayes. C, we are going to look at the extended fiscal year 23 additional compensation for instructional and pupil service staff to all classified and administrative staff. Shannon, thank you.
Good evening, trustees. So last spring legislation, they approved for fiscal year 22 bonuses or additional compensation to all certified, classified, and administrators in recognition of their hard work through these really tough 2 years. They also announced that they were going to do...
One second, Shannon. Anne, Ms. Seddon. Ms. Seddon, thank you. You had your opportunity to speak, and I can't hear what's going on up here in focus with whispers. No. Thank you, Anne. All right, thank you. Shannon, could you start again so we can focus?
So last spring legislation, they approved for fiscal year 22 a round of one-time stipends, bonuses, additional compensation to certified, classified, and administrators in recognition of their hard work during these past 2 years with COVID and everything. And that was through state COVID funding. And they also announced, and they released in the past couple months, another round of one-time additional compensation, but just to certified and pupil services staff. And that round is at $1,588.19 to be exact. And then they are also doing an additional allocation for fringe and Percy. They did not extend that to our classified staff and our administrators, and we recognize that everyone has a part to play with our education, especially with COVID. Everyone's had a tough time. Morale has been dropped to the lowest points, but people have continued to step up and work. So we recommend that we extend this one-time stipend to all our staff, including classified and administrators. Through our one-time ESSER funding, and we have identified, just to be consistent with how we paid out and how the state paid out the fiscal year 22 one-time bonuses, we will use the state calculated FTE for classified and for administrators. So the cost for the classified staff is $720,000 based off of 384 state FTE, and the estimated cost for administrators is $97,000 based off of 51 FTE, and that will be paid through regular general ESSER funds.
All right, thank you. Trustees, are there any questions for Ms. Johnson, or? No? Does anyone want to make a motion, or?
I'll make a motion to approve the additional fiscal year 23 additional compensation to all classified and administrative staff. They are an important part of our school as well.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I'm a nay on this one. And
Opposed?
that's me. I'm a nay on this one. And I was going to give discussion, but you didn't give me a
Oh,
chance.
sorry, I didn't give you a chance. You didn't give us some discussion.
Just on this one, real quick, I understand the administration's recommendation on this. I'm concerned it doesn't do anything to fix really the challenges that we have as classified staff of retaining. It's kind of a Band-Aid for who we have today and doesn't really help us fill all those open positions. So I'm concerned about the money and the one-time nature. So that's why I'm voting no. I know the people need the money. I just wish there was a different way we could do it.
Great, thank you. Sorry to not give you a space for discussion.
I got it.
All right. Where are we at?
We voted.
We voted?
4-1.
Got it. 3-1. Ms. Bierke, I know you were up against a time crunch the later it went, so she might have already gone on to her next meeting, so. I don't think she's on there. No, she's gone. All right. So 3-1. Thank you. Let's go ahead then. We've got our next revised expenditure plan for ESSER 1, 2, and 3. And so, Ms. Johnson.
Yeah, this will be a little more quick because we did go through at our last board workshop a presentation outlining our ESSER 1, ESSER 2, and ESSER 3 actual expenditures and proposed expenditures for our last round of ESSER 3 that will expire on September 30th, 2024. This plan kind of summarizes a nice summary of what we discussed and really kind of a requirement for these funds is the board and the district continue to review and make these revised plans updated. Approving the plan doesn't approve of these actual expenditures, I guess depending on the threshold of spending. It's just the revised updated plan for now. It's going to be along next 2 years, so we will continue to make updates and present to the board and have it posted on our website under the finance department.
Thanks. Any questions? And I've got.
It needs approval, correct? We're looking for approval of the plan.
And to clarify, and I asked Dr. Hawker this earlier today, but that the whole section on deferred maintenance will be combined with the $5 million that we approved last workshop. Did we do it at the workshop?
We approved that the resolution at the regular meeting in September.
Meeting.
Yeah. So Seth and Jeff and the team will be presenting that that plan at the next board meeting.
Okay. Terrific.
I'll make a motion to approve the plans as presented.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Any additional discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none. Passes. All right. And we have our student advisory group and our SAG bylaws, and these are back for a second reading. And so I believe, Dr. Hawker, who's going to present on?
Well, Luke's still there, but
I know. Way to go, Luke.
He has stuck it out for the whole night. But you've received the updated recommendations for the bylaws, and Luke's obviously here to help answer some specific questions. I think we were able to provide to you some explanations, I guess, in regards to their first round as to kind of what they were thinking from their perspective. And so really we just stand for questions and then would ask for your approval to support those revised bylaws.
Great. And Luke, I believe you guys all took a lot of those comments to heart. You listened, and I appreciated the change, especially just regarding the trustee appointment. And so I appreciate that. And yeah, I appreciate the work that you've continued to do on this. Any additional questions for Luke or Ms. Carnes?
I'll just make a quick comment. Thank you for being here and sticking with us. And thank you for going back and looking at this document again. I think I was the stick in the mud on this one a little bit, at least to start. And so I appreciate you addressing the concerns that were raised by myself and my fellow trustees. It looks good to me.
Great.
I agree. I just want to clarify. So committee operation, point 2, changed fairly significantly. And I think I read in the info you sent that the goal of this was to make it so that you didn't have to wait for a full group meeting to, like, the goal of this was if elementary had something they wanted to present to the board, they could go ahead and present without waiting for all 3 levels to meet together. Is that correct?
Hello? Oh, there we go. So your question is...
So my question is, those standing committees is what it's referred to now, based on grade level, they will vote on something as a group before it comes to the board, but it just won't go to all 3 levels, correct?
So they won't need to pass it through middle school and high school because, I mean, some of the problems don't relate to, either of those branches, because then you get, elementary problems coming to high school kids that don't necessarily understand. So I think it's important that it's just passed within each grade level and then it's taken to the board and then to the board for discussion.
So things that came to the board would have received the majority of support in their grade level group, correct?
Yes,
okay.
In the updated version.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. Any other additional questions? All right.
I can move to approve the SAG bylaws, the bylaws of the Student Advisory Group as presented.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, bylaws pass. All right. Next up, we have policy 2585, and Blue, way to stick it out up here. It's your time to shine. All right, Blue. Oh, there he is.
He moved.
You're committed. I know. Way to go. So who is presenting on this policy this evening?
Well, certainly Aaron and Keith are available. This is a first reading. I'll let Aaron kind of share with you what this policy does, and then it would be our hope to take it out for input.
Thank you so much for offering me the opportunity to speak. My name is Erin Duncan. I'm a mental health counselor with the Coeur d'Alene School District. I've previously worked at Winton for the last 10 years, and for the past 3.5 years, I was allowed to pilot a program at Winton Elementary with my service dog, Blue. So based on what occurred at Winton and what existed and did not exist in the policy currently in place, I believe it's 2377, is that animals in schools, which address primarily enclosed animals, our smaller animals in enclosed space. So I identified a gap in the policy based on the experiences at Winton that are presented in the policy 2585 that you see in front of you. It's fairly beefy. There's a lot of details to go over, and it is my first go at policy, so I appreciate you taking the time and providing feedback based on the information provided. I also received a considerable amount of support from district leadership, from Keith, mental health department,
Winton Elementary, families, students, staff. I just want to make sure that that gets noted in this presentation, that this didn't happen in a vacuum. There were lots of hands and help that went into this policy. So I'm excited to hear feedback and questions as this document moves forward, hopefully.
Thank you. Any initial questions? I'll go ahead just really quick. I am looking forward to the this is going to sound really strange, but the form that allows parents to opt out. I know that although we believe that every child loves dogs, I know from experience that some kids have trauma because of situations. And so I look forward to that, because maybe kids are coming at dogs just in their space differently. So I look forward to just that piece of that coming back and being able to review that. So thanks.
Will that be here next month? Okay.
Yeah, that's my understanding, is that the form and some of those other pieces that are listed underneath that are still to come for our review.
Okay.
Trustee Morris-Rowe?
Yeah, the only question I was going to have, Aaron, was when Blue first came around, there was someone who used to email us with some concerns. I can't remember who it was. Someone out of Southern Idaho, I want to say.
Correct. Yes.
And are some of those concerns addressed in here?
Absolutely. The policy directly addresses how a service animal will be or will not be interacted with while in the building, and the policy actually speaks to the prioritization of the handler and the service animal while the facility dog is in the building, and in no way are they to disrupt or distract or interact with the service dog or the handler.
Thank you.
Is the CGC certificate, is that kind of the gold standard for dog handlers, or where does that kind of fall? I'm not super familiar with it, so.
Talk dog with you all day if you want to. The Canine Good Citizen is from the American Kennel Club, the AKC. It's a trademark, and it's a baseline introductory training. It gives permission to a handler to go into more specialized training. So usually, therapy animal organizations will require that the CGC or Canine Good Citizen is in place first. And until that Canine Good Citizen is in place, most programs won't take you into any intermediate or advanced training. That policy really just states that the animal is well behaved, can do very basic training and skills, and is ready to do more. This policy speaks to the possibility of creating a mandatory therapy animal certification for dogs participating in this facility animal program to support and ensure the safety of both the dog and the students that it supports.
Terrific. Thank you. Any additional questions? This policy will go out then for public comment over the next month, and we'll look forward to it coming back. Again, thank you so much for all your work on it, and thank you to Blue for, I know he's beloved in Winton.
Boy, thank you so much.
So thank you for that. Ms. Groutman, are you going to present on medical terminology and the changes in that course?
Yes, thank you, trustees. We first brought you the medical terminology last year, and it was aligned more with the CTE pathway. And we realized that we needed some more flexibility with that course to enable people with different certifications to perhaps teach it as well. So we're bringing it back before you. Now it's aligned more with our health standards rather than our CTE standards, and it would allow anybody with a health endorsement to teach that course.
Great.
So would it no longer be a CTE course? Is that correct?
The revised course would not be a CTE course. We could bring it back to you once we have a more established pathway ready to roll out.
It would be an elective?
It is an elective, yes.
Not a health replacement?
Not a replacement, no.
All right.
All right. Any other additional questions? That will go out then for comment, correct?
Yes,
Right.
and then we would bring it back before you in November.
All right.
Thank you.
Couple of dates
For all of us, just to remember, make sure we have on our calendar, we do have on the 14th, which is not this Friday, but the following Friday, a special meeting just regarding board and superintendent goals and a continuation just of that work. We've got on the 17th a board workshop, and that'll be over at Woodland Middle School. And then following that will be, if you'd like to meet your board and have a cookie and some. It sounds weird if I say something to drink, but I just mean like a cookie and milk or lemonade or something like that. So we're going to meet afterwards at 5 p.m. for an hour and just an opportunity to interact with our board. We look forward to just kind of that meet and greet following our workshop. And then on the 7th, we've got a regular board meeting at 5 p.m. at Midtown here, and I will be, Trustee Morris Rowe will be leading that meeting, and I will be phone calling in as I am out of town. So, and then the November 9th through the 11th is the ISBA annual convention here in Coeur d'Alene. So be welcoming all sorts of people to Coeur d'Alene for that.
And we have our first budget subcommittee meeting that I believe Leslie and I are on Wednesday afternoon. And is Leslie, she's not going to be back, I assume, by Wednesday? Oh, she is? Oh, all right. Oh, my goodness.
Yep.
Okay.
All right.
Well, she's going to be tired from staying up late and flying a long ways, but.
All right. And meeting adjourned. Thank you.